Okay, guys, so if you have had psychology or maybe a science class, you may have come across some of the terminology that we're about to go over. So hopefully it's pretty easy. The first term that I want you to be familiar with when it comes to studying data is this idea of what is our population. So the population is the group, and I'll say group of people, although it doesn't have to be a group of people, for which you are trying to analyze or draw conclusions about. And so let's say you're gathering data or running an experiment, and maybe you're trying to see, how much sleep do all high school students get? Well, all the high school students, that would be the group that you're trying to analyze or draw a conclusion about. Or maybe you're curious about how many cars people in Pittsburgh have. So your population would be Pittsburghers. Okay, you don't care about people in a different city. You're just trying to draw a conclusion about people in Pittsburgh. Maybe you're curious about how much sleep your high school teachers get. And so high school teachers would be your population that you are studying. Now, a really important thing is most of the time you cannot interview or get in contact with all high school students or all Pittsburghers or even all high school teachers. It's just too many people. And so that leads us to most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, a sample is taken. And so the sample is the actual people or group or whatever that you actually get data from. So let's say our population, back to those high school students, you probably can't interview or study every single high school student. So maybe you just pick one high school somewhere and you interview all the students in that particular high school. You'll try to then, generalize your results to all high school students, but you maybe only gathered data from a particular subgroup. With the Pittsburghers, can't probably interview or get data from every single one, so maybe you would just pick 20 random residents of Pittsburgh. Probably can't call up every high school teacher in the United States, so instead you just interview the Quaker Valley teachers. Okay, so now we can make arguments about whether something's a good representative sample or not. That's a very important thing in psychology and statistics. But I just, for right now, want you to understand the difference between a population and a sample. In the rare occurrence that your sample matches your population, we call that a census. All right, so we know that happens every 10 years, actually, where the government tries to get in contact with every single resident of the United States. That's why it's called the census, because they're trying to take a sample, but that sample is supposed to match the population. So what kind of data do you gather? Well, that can really fall into one of two types, okay? You can have qualitative data, and I wrote this word quality here because that helps me remember, to keep it straight. Quality is not numerical, so we're going to say it's categorical. In fact, that's often the word I'll use, that something's categorical. So labels and titles and classifications, and I don't want to say it's always not a number, but most of the time it's not numerical. So our examples, I have like types of cars: truck, sedan, convertible, SUV, all those different types. Brands of shoes. Okay, again, those are kind of like labels. Types of exercises. So if you were to record the different, things here, they would be classifications or categories. That leads us to quantitative, and you can see I wrote the word quantity, and this is really helps me keep it straight here, because quantity, we know that's referring to something that's numerical, and so we can often have numerical data. So maybe instead of types of cars, you record mileage on the cars. Maybe instead of the brands of shoes, you record the cost of a pair of shoes. Maybe instead of recording what exercise was done, maybe you record the duration of that exercise. So all of these would be numerical, hence quantitative. So one thing I want you to be able to do is sort of, look at a situation. Maybe it's a list of data, maybe it is a table or a graph. Like here we have actually, fairly complicated line graph. Lots of lines happening. It's a little morbid, I do apologize. It's about the injury, the deaths, how they occur, unintentional injuries, what kinds can you have. So one line with the X's, that's motor vehicles. You can see a spike right here. The late teens, the number of deaths go up. I'm sure that's not a surprise to us. If we look at something else that's interesting, falls here, that's the line with the circle. Not a whole lot of deaths because somebody fell until you get over here where it says, as you age, as you get older, a fall can be deadly. Another interesting one I thought was the fire one never really goes up, I believe. So not a whole lot of people are experiencing unintentional deaths by fire. So anyway, you can analyze all the different things here, but we want to really look at the variables. So first indication, go to your X and Y axis. So we have age on the x-axis, and that's clearly quantitative. It's a number. We have number of deaths, which, I just said number of deaths. That's a number, so that's quantitative. There's actually a third variable here because you have this key down here, and you've got lots of different lines. So you can have types of deaths or accidents. Could probably argue either or there, but that would be qualitative because that's not numerical. Okay. I know I didn't ask for it, but if we had to talk about our population here, let's go look at the title. It says unintentional injury deaths by age and event in the United States. So it looks like they're studying, the U.S. population, we'll say. And it looks like all ages, right, from newborns to people who are 100 years old. So we're not studying other countries, we're just studying the U.S. Now, they probably didn't maybe interview everybody or gather data from everybody. That's hard to tell. So I don't know if the sample matches the population, but I think we can safely say that this is the group of people we are trying to analyze. Okay, we can pause it right there and we'll pick up with that tomorrow.